The following review contains discussions of suicide. Viewer discretion is advised. And now we begin the Sixth Doctor's solo stories with Big Finish. In this story, he's teamed up with Perry. This is a story that features something that was particularly excellent about the early Big Finish releases, and that is the fact that they took the absolute most advantage of the fact that their entire catalog was going to be sound-based. In his proposal for the story, writer Justin Richards wrote, "I've tried to think of something that will fully exploit, the medium, and I think there's lots of opportunities to have fun with the audience here." And he did this by making the story about what you hear and recordings. Also, if we take a look at the newest part of my collection, literally, I found this at a used bookstore this morning. And if we look inside, along with the signature from Justin Richards, in this blurb he wrote, "The starting point for Whispers of Terror was a desire to do something with the oral medium that just could not be done in the same way on television or in a novel. I was aware as I was writing that I was asking for a lot technically, but as you will hear, I was asking it of the best qualified people in the world to deliver." It was apparently technically challenging enough that they forgot to record 2 speeches and had Lisa Bowerman, who plays a role in this, she had to record some stuff for this while recording a Bernie Summerfield story, Dragon's Wrath. While we're talking about this insert, when I read this book while writing the review, I saw a quote by Justin Richards saying that he was happy with everything except the printers. And yeah, this is bad. This is an ugly shade of yellow. It is unreadable. Like, I was looking at this, trying to see if I could find, like, cool, individual titles for episodes or something, but you can only read this if you put it at an angle and let the light from above refract off of it. This is bad. It's just a printing mistake, but it apparently was on every single release. So that's fun. So now that I have shown off my recent purchase, let's get back to the review, and by that I mean let's talk about the rest of the creators of the story. This was directed by Gary Russell and has cover art by James Arnott, and yeah, I love this cover. In my opinion, this is the first great cover of the monthly range. This cover has so many great elements, from the really good photos used here of the Doctor and Perry, to this digital face, which is just excellently done, to if you look across the top, you see the sound wave used here. It's just an excellent cover. Another thing I found while reading this book is alternate titles. And I always love those. And the alternate titles for this were apparently The Sound of Fear and Sound Judgment, which in my opinion is an excellent pun. And apparently Whispers of Terror is actually the writer's least favorite title. And I can't say that these titles are definitely better. I am too used to Whispers of Terror, but I do like these, especially Sound Judgment. That's just nice. As yet another fun aside, I have a lot of asides in this. Sorry that this is front-loaded with just cool asides that aren't actually about the story. But anyway, when I was reading this book, there was a really fun anecdote that Justin Richards, when he was writing the story, he wrote the first episode and then decided to read it aloud to make sure he had good timing on it. And he realized he got to the 45-minute mark and he wasn't yet through 2/3 of the script. Now, see, the way to work with having scripts be wildly wrong in terms of length is to just not care. That's how you inexplicably can spend 5 minutes on one video, 17 minutes on another one. Who knows how long this one will be? I'm guessing around 20 minutes. We'll see. I certainly don't care if it actually is that long, longer, or shorter. But in this story, he did manage to rework the script and get it down to having each part be under 30 minutes, which is remarkable given that anecdote. Now, I want to say, this review is going to be more of a listing of things I liked in roughly chronological order, rather than a true play-by-play, so I won't necessarily be saying everything that is important, and we'll be doing a lot more of, oh hey, here's something I didn't mention earlier in this review. It's just easier, plus I'm wanting to leave some things out so that if you decide to listen to this one, which you should, you can find some extra little treats in here. Part 1 establishes the characters really well. Perry and Six are fighting, as they should. It makes a really good transition from how they were in the TV stories, and you're introduced to a very interesting world with the Oral Antiquity Museum, which is just perfectly on the nose. In the museum, we find Gantman, who is, again, made great use in this story, as he is someone who has lost his sight and a decent chunk of his sense of smell, leaving him with an amazing sense of hearing. The Doctor and Perry meet up with Gantman and are comparing different versions of a recording that they have heard, which are speeches made by an actor who recently died named Vistine Crane. They are recordings that haven't been heard by anyone, and no other copies of the recordings exist. But the Doctor and Perry heard one version in the hallway, while Gantman heard another one in the room he's in, and they realize they heard different recordings as they're commenting on it. And as hopefully one last aside, Gantman is played by Peter Miles, who is most known for playing Niter in Genesis of the Daleks. It's just nice to see Doctor Who actors in other roles. I get why Big Finish don't do it as often. Fans expect the actors they know from roles to play those roles, but it is nice to have them play different roles here and there. Back to the plot, they decide to look up and play the recording, and it's the version the Doctor and Perry heard in the hallway, not the version Gantman heard. And I should say, this is the actor performing a political speech, and I need to talk about the change that they're talking about here. This is the type of change that is extremely pedantic, and only really matters to people in a pre-2016 world, where they're changing something like, not a single man is above his policies, to no single man is above his policies. Now, I'm sure there's a difference there, but in today's post-2016 world, those are the same thing. They were already pretty close back then, but yeah, that's a difference without a purpose. But I do understand that in a pre-2016 world, that is a difference that could matter a lot, but it is really interesting to come at this in 2025 and hear them debating the difference between these two versions of this line. In part 2, we learned that the deceased actor had actually died recently and had actually been running for president. And unrelated to that, because this is a Oral Antiquity Museum, there are students there. Like, I'm guessing college students type thing. And one of the students heard strange voices. And based on little more than that, the Doctor is able to come to the conclusion that there is a creature there that is a sound wave that can make itself sound like anything potentially, which is a terrifying prospect. Like I said, this is a story about sound, and maybe it's a little obvious to have a story about sound and have one of the villains be a sound monster, as implied by the awesome cover. But I do love it. It's a really good idea. We get some very interesting moments where someone gets a message telling them to do something, and the person sending the message is hiding who they are, and it's revealed to be the famous actor's running mate, Beth Purnell, played by Lisa Bowerman. It's honestly a really good effect done there. I genuinely don't know if they actually modulated her to sound very different, or if they used two actors and blended them to as they strip away the sound effect. But either way, it's really well done. But then the sound creature, who was merely theorized to exist, is proved to exist by it imitating the Doctor over the radio to try and convince the people in the control room to remove the locks that the Doctor put in to prevent any sound from escaping the building, thus trapping it there. And this ends up proving the creature exists because while it is speaking on the radio, the Doctor shows up, thus proving either there's two Doctors or there's a sound creature impersonating him. And it also confirms that the creature cannot escape. It's real nice whenever a creature inadvertently admits to its own faults and limitations. At the end of the episode, the Doctor learns that Crane died in the museum in front of a specialized piece of sound equipment, which makes him the likely candidate to be the sound creature, and that specialized sound equipment is likely how he turned himself into the sound creature. Now, I should specify, I'm leaving a lot of this story out. The Doctor then accuses Beth Purnell of altering Crane's speeches and doing whatever it takes to become the president by using Crane's speeches to get his supporters on her side, as she takes over for him on the presidential ballot. At the beginning of part 3, we get confirmed, or I think it had been specified, but it only really draws its attention here, so I only really noted it here, that it's believed that Crane died by suicide using a gun while on the phone with Beth Purnell. Later, the Doctor is able to trap Crane, aka the sound creature, on a CD, and Beth is able to steal the CD by having her assistant swap CDs with the doctor, and she talks to the creature without getting it off of the CD by turning the sound off of the direct speaker and replacing and replicating the sound wave through another device, which is technically a different thing, and therefore he is not being let loose. Now, I'm sure someone will say if you replicate a sound, it's the same thing as the original, but we are talking about a person who was transformed into a sound-based being purely on Doctor Who-y science that isn't fully explained. Let's let the story have this one, okay? Okay. While talking to Crane, Beth then begins to interrogate him to learn what he knows, and he denies editing his own recording, but then after he refuses to give up more information, she tortures him by deleting parts of the sound wave from the middle of the sound wave and then rearranging bits of the sound wave because she doesn't want to delete everything in case it destroys the knowledge she is looking for. This scene honestly plays like a genuine torture scene where there's a soldier trapped in a bunker somewhere getting their fingers cut off. It genuinely was a little painful to listen to. This is the kind of thing that I genuinely don't know if Big Finish could do now, but I actually do like that they were able to get away with it and make it for this story. It's during a pause in the torture as Beth is threatening to continue that Perry stumbles in and figures out what's going on, and Beth basically just drops the mask of niceness and tries to capture Perry, but Perry is able to run away only to run into Beth's number 2, Stengard, who brings her back and captures her. And it is a reasonable mistake for Perry to have made. It wasn't exactly clear that Stengard was fully on Beth's side until this exact moment. For reasons I do not know, I might have missed it, but feels like it kind of comes out of nowhere. Crane then recreates the audio recording of his death. I mean, in general, why would he want that to be heard at this moment? But anyways, we hear the recording of the death, where he is on the phone with Beth and he says, "There's a gun at my head," and then we hear the gun go off. Perry then frees Crane by turning up the original sound so he can go off to not be tortured and just do his own thing. There is a broadcast going to happen where they honor Crane by playing his rarely heard recordings on television that I haven't been talking about that has filled a decent chunk of the runtime up until now. The Doctor then surmises that Crane could go out as part of the broadcast using one of his own speeches and then copy himself everywhere. So everywhere that is playing this TV station would then get a copy of Crane, which, based on how he's been acting up until now, would be not ideal. In part 4, the Doctor goes to the room where Beth is, and she is sure of victory, so she doesn't really do anything about it, and the Doctor is able to turn on the microphone in the room where they are, and communicate to the others in the control room about how to stop the broadcast, using the recording of the broadcast that's going to go out to create a cancellation wave so that the sound that is coming out is nothing. Eventually, the Doctor leaves as Beth is struggling, trying to figure out what went wrong, and the Doctor then calls her and gets her monologuing so that she can't figure out how to correct it, where she just lays out her fascism quite blatantly, saying that democracy thins out power so much that it is essentially nothing, and that she just needs to get power to help correct everything so that everyone is better. This is actually scarier now than it was the first time I heard this, because she's coherent and cognizant of what she is doing. As an American, looking at America dive straight towards fascism, the idea of someone doing this on purpose rather than getting a buffoon who just sort of fell into this playbook based on his own selfish desires before getting people who know better to make a plan to help him do it better. Yeah, this is scarier. Having someone on purpose from the beginning, rather than only on purpose after getting a lot of help, it's much scarier. Don't dwell on that. Back to the story. Beth has shown herself to be that kind of ruthless person where she says things like, "I am all that matters," and I want to be clear, I am basically quoting her directly here when she's describing her views on democracy. It's bleak. The Doctor then sadly informs Beth that the Soundwave creature is likely to be dead. They believe it happened when they did the cancellation wave, which was not just to stop her, but to stop Crane from getting out and using that to escape. And he laments that he realizes he and Crane were probably closer ideologically than he realized, despite the killings. As part of her ramblings, Beth says Crane couldn't stop me when he was alive, he won't stop me now. Everyone's trying to figure out what she meant by that, to which Perry says, I heard the audio of his suicide. He played it when I was in the room. I don't think he killed himself. After they realize Crane is still alive, they listen to the sound again, and the doctor realizes he didn't say, I'm going to kill myself. He said, there's a gun at my head. And then he hears this weird sound that some think is like a weird bit of machinery, but the doctor realizes it's Stengard. He's making the sound that he's been making throughout the whole story that I haven't mentioned till now because drawing too much attention to it makes it obvious. But he's been going around going, which is what he made before shooting Crane. Crane is then able to impersonate the computer where Stengard is and trick him into touching a live wire, which kills him. Good for you, Crane. We then go to the doctor returning to see Beth as she's listening to the broadcast finally going out. And we hear the speech, and it's very different from the recording. Instead of thanking Beth for her help in getting him where he is condemning Beth and everything she stands for, and the doctor reveals that they found Crane is still alive, and he is giving the speech live. I guess he can't be duplicated anymore, or because everything got his head straightened out better, he's not interested in that anymore. But yeah, he's just giving the speech live now. Crane has also made a different recording of his suicide, where he says something less ambiguous than, there's a gun at my head. In this version of the recording, he says, your man has his gun at my head, which makes it a lot more obvious. The story then ends with everyone seemingly as okay as they can be, but Beth is not going to make it far in politics and has run away. Crane says he'll be staying at the museum, and everyone else is fine. After the doctor leaves, we cut to Beth getting away, planning to get back on top as soon as she can, when she checks her messages. And she finds a message from Stengard, only to realize it's actually Crane, and he's able to blow up her car. I'm slightly unclear as to how he did that, but I do get the narrative of him doing that. And that's the note the story ends on. Overall, this is an excellent story. I left some bits out so that you can find them when listening to the story, but I do feel like this is a decent overview of what all happens here, and is a really excellent story. I highly recommend you check this one out if you haven't already. It's not perfect. Part 4 is rushed, and there are some obvious bits of redrafting, and that at one point the doctor leaves Beth only to speak to her again over the speaker, and small bits like that. I will say it has a very interesting world, the doctor is great, Beth Purnell is an excellent villain, she is just terrifyingly real, especially nowadays. And the story makes excellent use of sound, and it is just a great thing to have at the start of the audio range by having a creature made of sound. The best part, it's not even the main villain, which, I don't know, that feels nice. Not having something as obvious of this be the main villain. That really works. Oh, and I'm sure some people will notice, the Doctor Who logo that I've used throughout this is technically the 5th Doctor's one. The 6th Doctor's is this, but just curved slightly. I didn't know how to adjust this model before I 3D printed it, and when I was making all these signs that I've been using throughout these reviews, I couldn't find a 6th Doctor one, so I just have what I have. There is a broadcast going to happen where they honor Crane by playing his rarely heard recordings over the TV waves. Why is the phrase TV waves so difficult? Like, TV waves. Why does that keep coming out?